Hello, Millwall fans. Paul Eiffel here. It's time for Chat with Chaps.
Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another episode of Chat with Chaps. This is the post-match analysis for the game. Well, I call it a game. the interesting game we've just watched at the Ricoh Arena, where it finished Coventry City 0, Millwall 0. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I normally do. So I'm going to do my post-match analysis. I'm going to do it live. So I'm just going to one take, see how much I get right, how much I get wrong, straight after the game. Then we're going to be joined by our very own Joe Zampa. Joe will be joining us, as well as Disco Steve, and we're going to talk about a few things. Obviously, get their thoughts on the game, also get the thoughts on Alex Neil. A little bit weird how everyone else has confirmed it except us, right? And then we're also going to make one or two sort of talking points about some comments that I saw during the game, some of the players and things like that. So plenty for us to get into. First and foremost, if it's the first time you're listening to the channel, please do like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Everything we're doing this season goes to Cancer Research UK. And of course, if you are already part of the channel, hello and good evening. I already see some of the comments going through. Hi to Carl, Bailey, Baz, Jeff, Martin, and Alex S. I'm not going to read any comments out. Like I said, I'm going to do my normal post-match spiel. And believe it or not, I cannot multitask. So I cannot read your comments and do my post-match at the same time. So let's get into it then. So I think first and foremost, the lineup. So the lineup was, for us, in goal, Lucas Jensen. Obviously, one change, right, which was at the two changes, which were at the top of the pitch. One enforced, one not. Back four, right to left, Ryan Leonard, Javi Tanganga, Murray Wallace, Joe Bryan, Casper Denort, and George Savile in the centre of the park. And then the front three behind the striker was Romain Esse, moved to the right-hand side. On the left, Femi Aziz, George Honeyman returning to the side in a 10. And then finally, Macaulay Langstaff up top, replacing Mihailo Ivanovic. So that was our lineup. For Coventry, one of the big noticeable absentees for them was Mason Ephraim-Clark. Obviously scored against us in the reverse fixture a couple of weeks ago and has been one of their better players. Also, Coventry just come off the back of a 4-0 thumping over Plymouth. Now, speaking to some Coventry fans before the game, they weren't that good. It's just that Plymouth were that bad. And there's all sorts of rumours flying around about Plymouth at the moment. So I'll let you read into that. A couple of other things I want to call out. Obviously, Imaku not involved due to the injury. Don't think we've necessarily learned the extent of that groin injury just yet. And of course, the fact that Ryan Wintle, Wes Harding and Alfie Massey, all not in the squad, I believe, through illness, meant that we were really thin, particularly in the centre of the park, which was fantastic to see Reece Bangura Williams coming on to the bench, a player that I personally have a huge hope for, really, really good lad. And I'm just hoping that he is going to be one for the future. Now, I think let's address the elephant in the room, right? So Alex Neil was in the stands today, sitting alongside Mr. James Berylson, and also alongside another guy, which I think is Martin Canning, who was a guy that Alex took to various clubs. By the way, I don't think this mic's working. Can someone just put in the comments if you can hear me okay? Because I've got a feeling it's not this microphone that's coming through. Can you just put in the comments for me? Just someone say, yeah, just put yes or a thumbs up. Because this is telling me that this microphone isn't quite performing. But maybe you can hear me. I can hear you. Thank you, Looking for Food. Your name is literally I spent my whole life. So thank you, guys. Much appreciated for that. Much appreciated. I'll carry on now. So yeah, the odd elephant in the room that Alex Neil was in the stadium, sitting next to our chairman. Everyone else has confirmed it except the club, and I just find that a little bit odd, if I'm honest. But yeah, anyway, A couple of other things before I get into the game, because let's be honest, there's not actually much to talk about this game. It was pretty poor. I want to give I want to reference the fact that I think George Saville looks tired at the minute. I think it's fair to say that he's not performing in line with the levels that he was at the start of the season. But then if Ryan Wintour's sick or injured, and from what I'm hearing, Billy Mitchell is still some way off being able to start games. We don't really have anyone else. So whilst I understand the criticism of Sav and people saying that his legs are gone and all this kind of thing, I think even Sav would recognise he shouldn't be playing as many minutes as he is. And I think that's just something I wanted to point out. The other thing I wanted to point out before going into the game is they had a chap up top, and any Coventry fans listening to this would love to get your view. I was talking to a few fans during the game. Norman Bassett. Now, he is like their Mihailo Ivanovic. He's, from what I understand, 19 years old, signed for over £2 million in the summer. I think he's made 14 starts, scored 1 or 2 goals, and he's getting in the team ahead of Ellis Sims, Brandon Thomas-Asante. And on top of that, at times in the game today, he looked a little bit lost. And it's interesting that they're persevering with him. So we're not the only side that has a young and up-and-coming attacking player that is actually being thrust maybe when he's not quite ready yet. So I thought that was an interesting comparison, especially for a side that has spent as much money as Coventry have over the last few seasons. Anyway, getting into the game then. So after the first 3 minutes, I actually thought, I know it's only 3 minutes, but we started the game pretty sharp. You know, it ended up in a Leonard shot that deflected off Jake Bidwell that went out for a corner. We had a little bit of pressure in the opening sort of 5 minutes. I felt you could hear both sets of the crowd. Obviously not there today. Massive credit to the 1100 that are. And then nothing really happened, did it? You know, I think what I felt is we looked a lot more organised in that first half. You know, if you cast your mind back to the game against Norwich, the first 15, 20 minutes, we were dire. And we certainly looked a lot more organised in that half. Now, I'm going to choose my words carefully here. I think George Honeyman has a lot to do with why we looked a lot better out of possession. That's not me saying that he was very effective in possession. Oh, the contrary. But my point here is merely that we look more controlled and compact when we have George Honeyman setting the press, and he was. You could see it on the pitch. Doesn't mean to say I want him starting. Doesn't mean to say I thought he was good today. I am just merely referencing that we looked a lot more solid and our shape was more representative of what it's been over the course of the season. I think there was one good moment for us where I've noted down here, really good switch to Aziz. Aziz then shot straight at the keeper. Potentially Langstaff was a better option for him. On 18 minutes, they have their big chance where a good set-piece routine from a corner almost catches us out, results in Ben Sheaf shooting straight at Lucas Jensen. A word on Lucas Jensen. I said this in my Norwich post-match, but I really think Lucas Jensen is really starting to show to be a really good signing. He seems assured now on the ball. He comes for crosses. He claims his handling's good. His kicking seems to have improved. I actually think Lucas Jensen has been really solid. So I want to just mention him because I think at the start he certainly came up for criticism. I think he's grown in confidence, as has Femi Aziz. Another point I've noted here is that Langstaff couldn't really hold the ball up. He looked a little bit lost. I still feel we don't have a centre forward that's ready to be playing in the Championship 90 minutes every single week. Then we have another moment, and it is a nearly moment on 41, where a well-worked free kick from us. Leonard back to Casper, back to Leonard. Leonard then plays a deep ball in, and Van Uyck just does enough at the far post to stop Japhet Tanganga getting ahead on the ball. It was a really, really, really fine margins there at the back. Japhet looked very, very disappointed in himself. And then the half closes out with good defending from both Joe Bryan and Ryan Leonard as they counter-attack from our corner. That's happened a few times this season where we seem to have almost struggled from our own corners, which baffles me and certainly something we need to work on. That was the first half. It was a really poor first half. The whole game was. The second half hardly sprung into life, did it? But what I can say is Coventry certainly started the better. Similar to how we started the first half. I think on 50 minutes, they probably have the best chance. Well, not probably. It is the best chance of the game. Just I'm going to pause there, guys, because the numbers have shot up. If you are listening to this, just to let you know, I'm not looking at the comments at the moment. I'm just going to do my normal post-match spiel. Then I will go to the comments, and also we'll have Joe, Zampa, and Disco Steve joining us in about 10 minutes' time, where we're going to go through the comments and also talk a little bit about Alex Neil and a couple of the players and performances and things like that. So I'm not ignoring comments. Please keep them coming in. We will go back to them. I am a bloke and I can't multitask, so I am doing this live, recounting my view of the game, and then we'll come to the comments after. So bear with us, and thank you very much as always for watching. Now, coming back to the game, this was the best chance of the game. 50 minutes. It falls quite nicely. I think, I don't know, again, not seen anything back. I've got a feeling that Joe Bryan loses possession. Could be wrong. But the ball then breaks nicely to them. They then drive towards the pitch. Rodoni is free on the left-hand side. They play it out to Rodoni. Rodoni does really well, cuts back inside, puts Leonard on his arse. Leonard dived in too much there. Should have done better there. And then Rodoni smacks it. It rattles the top of the bar, rebounds down, hits the post, and then somehow doesn't end up in the net. That by far was the best chance of the game, which obviously they didn't take. They then started to grow in ascendancy a little bit. Rodoni was causing all sorts of problems. Good player, Rodoni, sort of lad that we should have spent £1 million or whatever it took to get him out of Wimbledon when he was there. I think he ended up going to Huddersfield and obviously subsequently on to Coventry. But he was causing all sorts of problems. He fed Victor Torp, who shot just narrowly wide from the edge of the box on 52. It then panned to Alex Neil. And I love this moment. And I don't know if any of you saw it, but it panned to him a lot. And what was interesting is Max and Cole Bates, who were on commentary, didn't reference Alex Neil at all, which I thought was, anyway. But it panned to Alex Neil. And what I loved is you could see he was so engrossed in the game. You could see him sort of do this and like as if to have it, head the ball on, which I like because obviously it just shows how invested he is. That was probably as exciting as the rest of the game got. But of course, there are a couple of things to mention. On 69, Bassett goes off for Ellis Sims. Coventry fans, I do find it remarkable that Ellis Sims is not starting ahead of a 19-year-old. I believe it's his work rate, but yeah, let me know in the comments your views on that. 73 minutes. I have to reference this. Femi Aziz, outstanding tracking back. A lofted ball over from their left to right. It's going towards their winger. Femi Aziz does superbly to not only get back, again, the desire, the effort, the commitment to get back, but then to head the ball, to take it out of reach of their winger, and then keep it from going on a corner, and then win a free kick. That bit was superb from Femi Aziz. Then we have a nearly moment again. This is all we created, guys. It was nearly moments, wasn't it? SA does superbly. Wriggles his way out of a real tight situation, which we know he's good at with his quick feet. Plays a 1-2 with Leonard. I thought at the time that Leonard delayed the ball a little bit too much. Then he gives it back to Romain Esse, who does really well again from a tight space to get the ball in the box, and Coventry do not deal with it. Goes out to a corner, which of course comes to nothing. They had a couple of nearly moments on 75. I've noted down here that one of the things that Esse still needs to learn is not to take people on in the first half. He then did it again on 90 minutes and nutmeg someone, so shows how much I know. And on 80 minutes, we bring on Tom Bradshaw for Macaulay Langstaff, and they bring on Thomas Asante for Victor Torp. But in reality, a couple of set pieces, but there was nothing else really to talk about. Was there, guys? So it was a boring game. I would class it as a solid defensive display. I think, defensively we looked good. We limited them to that one major chance, and that's the positive. I felt we were more ourselves from our shape and from our ability to allow teams to play where we wanted them to, and our pressing and all that kind of stuff. But the bit that concerns me is we've now scored 2 goals in 6 games, which is it's just not good enough. I think there's only 2 teams. I believe Dan Marsh put this in our group chat earlier. So Dan, this is your stat, mate, not one of mine. But I believe that there's only 2 teams that have scored less than us, which may have changed because I think Cardiff are one of them, and I know they scored at least 2 today. So that's the bit that Alex Neil will have to come in and address. How do you get the balance right of keeping that defensive solidarity, that ability to control where teams have possession, sides that are better footballing sides than us, that are better players than us, but at the same time be more effective with the ball? Because, what do we have today? 35% possession, which we're used to, but you can't do that every single game. It's not sustainable. Sam Parkin gave his views on that. So yeah, that's I think the thing for me. I'm not going to talk about Honeyman because I'm going to do a debate with Joe and Steve, who've got quite strong opinions on Honeyman. Because obviously the fact that Honeyman started and then remained on the pitch for the whole game was interesting, and certainly I know some don't agree with it. But we've got 3 games in a week, and I don't know whether the fact we've only got 2-day break and the fact we have a really small, thin squad at the minute means that maybe that's why Honeyman played the full 90. Don't know. But that's it really, guys. I think a real boring game to round out the year. Maybe that's what we needed. I think the fixtures that we have now for Alex Neil to come in, even though he's technically not been confirmed, but for Alex Neil to come in and is quite favourable. Obviously, Oxford is our first game. Gary Railway coming back to the Den. 2 games played for him, 2 wins. So that certainly will be an interesting one on New Year's Day. I can't wait to get back down the Den. It feels ages since I was last there. So that's going to be an interesting one. Hopefully 1 or 2 players back. Also hoping that Imaku's injury wasn't as bad as originally suspected, but who knows. So yeah, just going to round it up and summarise. There wasn't much to talk about. How I've done 70 minutes on it, I don't know. How I've still got 250 people listening, I don't know, but thank you. Finished at the Ricoh Arena. Coventry 0, Millwall 0. A good defensive display from us against a side that I think will get better, but at the minute really lack that cutting edge, don't they? So that is it from me. What I'm going to do now is I am going to look at some comments, and I'm also going to bring on my first co-host. We'll bring them on as they come in, and we will get Mr. Joe Zampa's thoughts on today. I wonder if he was as impressed as Alex Neil was watching on. Mr. Joe Zampa has put his back to us, which I think basically tells us that's all.
So I started doing the voice there. Really good.
Brilliant, mate. That was that's what we wanted.
Bear with me, sorry, mate.
Why you doing that, mate?
I'm here.
You're here, yeah.
Right? I'm good. You good?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Thank you for coming on. I thought we'd do something a little bit different this evening.
Yeah, exactly. What did you make of the game? What's your thoughts on it?
Have you not just listened to the last 20 minutes, Joe?
No. I'm joking. I'm joking, of course. Yeah, I mean, look, I would have definitely took a point before the game started. Especially them winnings 4-0, 4-1 against Plymouth the other week. So, and being away at Coventry as well, you always kind of fear we might end up losing. But first half, we were good. I think we weren't quite direct. I think you look at the stats, okay, they had more possession, we had more shots, forced more sort of corners, I think, and things like that. So attacking-wise, I think we probably edged it. Probably went a little bit too direct at times, but I was quite pleased with what we saw. But I think the way we're set up, I know we probably will talk about Honeyman in a minute. I think we're set up quite defensively anyway, especially when you think about, Honeyman coming in, where you could have probably had Watmore keep SA in the 10 and put Aziz on the right, which is natural position. Or even put Honeyman on the left, if you want to do it that way. But I think the way we're set up, we had nothing in their final third, did we? Because every time the ball was going forward, you had little Langstaff who couldn't trap a bag of cement, and then you had little Honeyman, who's even smaller than Langstaff, who was non-existent, I felt, in around that kind of area. So it was a shame, really. I think missed opportunity today. I think we could have probably got something out of it if we went a little bit more for it. But defensively, I think we were fine. We didn't really look in any sort of real bother or any sort of trouble, really, apart from 1 or 2. So generally, I'm quite pleased with the point. And I said, well, I took a point before the game anyway, you know?
Yeah, and I'm going to agree, Joe. And I'm going to bring in Disco Steve in a moment. But I think that I don't know whether some of the selections and some of the lack of changes are down to the fact that we've got a game in 3 days, and whether they would prefer to be more attacking at home, so therefore to play Watmore at home or not. I don't know, right? And obviously, how do you even know that? We don't know what the new manager's going to pick. But I'm just trying to. We've got a small squad, so
yeah. But again, if you're going to think about resting players, surely Saville, someone who you arrest, wouldn't you? More like in that kind of area midfield. I mean, even Casper, to be fair, but I think Casper did well enough. I mean, I'm not knocking Honeyman. I think Honeyman's is a good little player, but I think you need me personally. I'd rather play him in centre mid rather than in the 10. I love his energy. I love the fact he presses, and he's very good at doing that. But I would like him to do that in centre mid rather in the 10, because once we get possession and he's on the ball, he's a little bit non-effective, isn't he? I think in times. Whereas I much rather have Aziz in there.
We'll debate.
Sorry.
We'll debate Honeyman in a minute, but before we do that, I'm just going to bring in the one and only legendary Disco Steve to get his thoughts. Disco Steve, how you doing, mate?
Good evening, boys. Yeah, I'm really good. Legendary. That's unbelievable. Yeah, I love that. I love a bit of that. I was a bit worried with Joe going on about the little people. I thought, crikey, I'm only 5'9", just about. So I thought, is he going to have a go at me as well for being ickle?
But when you got your platform shoes on, you're 6'1", aren't you?
Exactly. Got the Cubans on, Joe. I heard most of your summary, Chris. You did brilliantly to make 17, 20 minutes of that, because it was really bloody quite dire. But look, we're the away team. The onus is on them to take the ascendancy and create things. I've got to say, I thought they were really poor. I had the weirdest thing. The stream that I was watching had no commentary, so it was just, you could just hear fans. And you've already said, hats off to our fans. We were in good voice and really got behind the boys at key times, so that was good. But they were going bananas at how slow they were passing it around the back. And at the end, I could hear one of their fans saying, just fucking pass it back to the keeper. And I'm like, we've done them, we've done them, which was great. So, look, great point for me. They're an informed side. Look, we owe them one from the home game. I agree, Joe. I think if we'd have gone for it, we could well have nicked it, but you'd have run the risk of opening up and then getting caught, and losing it 1-0 as well. So, look, I think he was thinking, I ain't going to lose this. I'm going to keep it tight, which is what we did. And, a really good point for me.
I just think first half, we had such a high defensive line. We're almost up to the halfway line at point. And I thought that was brilliant. We really took it to, and the ball was played in their half quite a bit. But again, in that final third, when we look at our attacking area, we just had nothing there, nothing stuck. For all Langstaff running around and whatever, he doesn't seem to make intelligent runs, doesn't seem to get the ball. When he does get the ball, doesn't really stick to him, or many times the ball's bouncing around him, but he doesn't quite get hold of it, And I'm not saying that Ivanovic is the answer, but I just feel that maybe having a bigger presence up front, someone like an Ivanovic might be able to do more with the ball, at least hold the ball up and allow others to play in. And of course, when it gets as bad as it does up front, and then when he brings on Bradshaw on 75, you're thinking, fuck me, like we're crying out for somebody to hold the ball up, and you bring on Bradshaw.
I think Bradshaw is quite good at holding the ball. I think that's one of his things that he can do well. To me, bringing on Bradshaw was basically him saying, I want a point. That's what he was. That's why he did bring Ivanovic on.
But why? Again, not for on the ball. It's more off the ball again, isn't it? It's all about this, getting Honeyman in position, get Bradshaw in position, let's press the defence, let's sit back. I don't know. You could argue that's a good move. We got a point out of it. Maybe, like you say, if we went for it, it might have cost us. We might have conceded. Who knows? Hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
And then this is where we can have an interesting debate, because I don't mind that away from home at Coventry. I don't. I'd take a 0-0 away at Coventry. It's if we do that against Oxford, which I know we'll have a different manager and stuff like that, then I have a problem with it. Away home from Coventry, shut up shop and get your point.
Spot on.
Like, we need a point. All the results today really went against us. They really did. And if anyone thinks, I'm going to show you something in a minute that I've prepared for this show. If anyone thinks that we are not capable of going down, don't get me wrong. I feel a lot more confident now knowing who's coming in. But we are not above that. We're not.
Agreed. There's a lot of teams who are going to hit some form, Chris, isn't there? There's no way, you know, like your Stokes and what have you, like they've won today, you know, they're going to get points. But I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be okay. And that proved it today. But it's not, you're right, we can't be complacent.
I still think there's teams in that bottom three that are a lot worse than us. I think we're 8 points ahead of whoever's in 21st position. I can't remember who it was now, 22nd position. But even Luton lost today, didn't they? I think they 1-0 up at one point, and then they ended up losing 2-1. So with Alex Neil coming in, I think we're going to see, you know, much needed energy injected into the team, to the squad. You could see a few of them today will try and impress, knowing that he was in the stands watching as well. But I think we definitely need something in the January transfer window. We need a decent forward. I was watching the game with a mate of mine who's a big Arsenal fan. And it's always interesting watching Millwall with someone who's not actually a Millwall fan and getting their opinion on what we're about. And he picked out some players. He said, SA looks quality. Aziz looked really good. Tanganga at the back, he said, was quality. And he said that even, as we always say every week, Tanganga and SA probably wouldn't look out of place in the Premiership. But he said himself straight away, your Honeyman and your Langstaff, they're a bit not very good at all, are they? And I was trying to explain to him, Langstaff works hard and Honeyman works hard. And even he's like, well, what good is that? Working hard, running around all the time. You've got to get on the ball and do something with it, you know?
Well, it's funny. It's like your Arsenal mate is Jeff, because I've started a few comments. So, guys, please do put the comments in, because we are starting to go through them now. I agree with Jeff here. Apart from Tanganga, SA, Kasper, and Aziz, and I would put Jensen in that, actually.
I'll probably put Leonard in that as well, to be fair.
Yeah, there's a few, but there's not enough. And someone's just put in the chat. Where is it? I want to put it up here. Baz, I agree with Baz. It's maybe this is an extreme view, Baz, but I think your point here is the squad is not as good as. We said this at the start of the season, by the way. I did a sort of dissection of the squad and where it's at, and I couldn't agree more. But then to Danny's point here. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many ifs and buts whether you go for it or not. But we certainly.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, Chris. But can't we keep that sort of that toughness, that resilience, in defence and be compact, but have something up front, just a substance. And all I'm saying is a slight amendment to that team is you bring SA into the 10, allow him to link with the forward, preferably Ivanovic. And then maybe bring in a Watmore or a Honeyman on the left if you wanted to. Obviously not having a Marku, it's we're talking like we've had a Marku all season playing out there on the left, but you can see what difference it makes having a Marku on the left, Aziz on the right, SA in that 10. We just look so exciting that attacking front three behind the main striker. But today you just see there's that grey area there. Yeah, defence looks solid. Midfield seem okay, and then just in that connection in that final third, it's like we've got, championship, League One, League Two level up front, and that's the thing. These defenders must be looking at Langstaff and Honeyman thinking, "Fuck me, smoking a cigar. This is easy." They didn't look troubled at all, did they?
There's two things in there. It's the quality of the balls up to the front too, if you like. A poor, there was a few times I was looking at it, fuck me, come on, at least play the channels even, but it just seemed like we hoofed it up to their centre halves. But it is the quality, as you say, of Honeyman and particularly Langstaff, unfortunately, just don't retain the ball or even put a defender under any sort of pressure, gets bullied off the ball. I'm different to you, Chris. I think for me, Bradshaw's the same. He gets bloody bullied off the ball far too easily for me. But I would say, Langstaff's no better than him. In fact, probably lesser than him, in holding the ball up.
I agree with you, Disco. Like I said, I very rarely see Bradshaw hold the ball up properly. What he does better than Langstaff is if the ball's up to him, he'll make it difficult for the defender. He'll lay one on there or lean on his chest
today, didn't he? It was so
obvious.
Yeah.
He'll go into them, and it's basically to put the defender off from clearing the header, so the ball drops down and we win the second ball. So he knows he ain't going to win that header, but he'll try and make it hard so we win the second ball. But what Langstaff does is terrible. Like, he just almost waits for the defender to win that header. And then when the ball does come to him, he doesn't really hold it up.
And have you noticed he seems to move too quickly? And it might be this, he's like a Duracell bunny. I presume it's his excitement, at Christmas time. Yeah. He's like, whoa, he's got his batteries in. And he's going too quickly, and he seems to kick the ball wrong and mistime it. I'm with you, Chris, that I think next year there's a goal scorer in there and there's a player in there, but you cannot say at the moment he's really delivered far from
it. I can't see it next year. I can't see it the year after that. He's 27. He's going to be 28 years old soon. If he can't do it now, he'll never do it. In my opinion, he's come from League 2 to the Championship. It's 2 divisions up. It's a massive jump for him. Don't get me wrong. I think he's better than League 2, but he isn't Championship quality. For me, he's League 1 quality, Langstaff.
I agree with B Line here, which is that he's a natural on the last defender, instinctive striker. He can't play up front on his own. And I think if you play a system that suits him, he'll be better. And I would personally give him a little bit of time. I just want to go back to something that Steve and Joe, you were both talking about this earlier. I think there's another issue with the way that we attack. It's not just about the quality of the people at the top of the pitch. It's the fact that even if they were amazing, they're trying to create something out of nothing sometimes because they get the ball in confined areas with no space, with no one around them. And other teams, look at Norwich. Every time that they attacked, they had 5, 6, 7 people in the box, let alone the half. And we don't do that. We don't get our fullbacks high up the pitch. We don't, because we don't play that way. So I think, yes, there is a lack of quality at the top of the pitch, but we also have to be better at getting bodies forward. And we know, with the greatest respect, people like Sav, that's not their game anymore. That isn't their game. Right, guys, what I want to do now is there's a couple of topics that I want to debate. So I want to talk about 3 topics and anything else that naturally comes up. So the first one I want to talk about is prepared a little slide that essentially just compares where we are. So let me start again. 23 games we've now played. So we've played half the season, right? I want to compare where we are now versus where we were last season on the halfway mark. So we're going to talk about that. Steve Morrison. Surely that's not Steve, actual Steve.
Well, it is your new mate now, isn't he? So it might well be, yeah.
Steve, if that is actually you, mate, just let me know and you can come on. Creative is our worst problem. Honeyman should be far away from number 10 as well. I can't see Steve Morrison.
Without trying to blow too much smoke up Steve Morrison's arse, if that is Steve Morrison, but could you imagine a Steve Morrison in this team at the moment? That is what we're lacking. We're lacking somebody.
Coburn is the key.
Or Coburn, yeah.
That's what's killed us. I mean, I can't believe, sorry, Chris, interrupting your 3 points, but we started this bloody season, and I remember being on a pod with you, Chris, and I was so excited because for once we had, Bradders, Langstaff, Coburn, Ivanovic, 4 strike. When have we ever had 4 strikers? And yet our big problem is fucking up front. We just got it is the delivery and the support, Chris, as well. But they're not doing enough, are they? Other than Coburn, they're not doing enough in games.
To comment what you're saying, that Disco, I completely agree. Yes, you could argue we're not getting a supply, we're not getting the right balls in the box, where it might be. But when you're a forward, you've got to do something. I think what that means, you've got to just battle harder for the ball, try and win those balls, or try and nick a free kick here and there. I just don't see enough in that attacking area at all. Honeyman on the ball doesn't do enough for me to play an number 10 role. I've said it all season,
Well, I would say, like Chris, today I'd go with that. I'm happy. And Norwich, we missed a trick there. He should have played against Norwich, and they wouldn't have been 1 up after 4 minutes, guaranteed.
Who should play against Norwich? Honeyman.
Honeyman up as a 10, because we were too open, unfortunately. Obviously, Amaku getting in didn't help, but I think we were too open there and very, very young, raw. Great intent from Livers, but I think it was a bit naive.
I think if you want
I
to
don't mind away
Honeyman,
from home, but like Chris says, not at home. We should not have him in a 10 role at home.
No.
That we
I expect to see Watmore and Ivanovic start. Yeah. I mean, again, who knows? Because Alex then might have a completely different complexion of what he wants to play. But knowing that he wants to play a 4-2-3-1 and knowing that Watmore and Ivanovic will be fresh, I expect them to try and take it to a Gary Rowett side. We know what Rowett's teams are like right away from home. We've been there. They're very defensive. But that's a nice segue, actually, for me to bring up this infographic. So on screen, and if you're listening on podcast, I'll explain it. So basically what we've done is this is comparing at the halfway mark how we're faring this year versus last year, and just a couple of key points. So first thing is we have 29 points now versus 23 at the halfway mark last season. So we're 2 wins or 6 points better off. We have actually scored less goals. That was one of the key takeouts from this. We said all season last year that we didn't score enough goals and we were one of the lowest scoring sides in the division. And yet we've scored less. We scored only 22 goals this season, which is, not even a goal a game. Not good enough. However, where we have made improvements is in the conceded. So we've only conceded 20 goals versus 31 last time. We've won 2 more games, as I said earlier, 7 instead of 5. And we're 13th in the table versus 20th. Incidentally, to get in the top 6, the points total is around about the same, so about the 36, 37 point mark. So I think overall, what this tells me is we're basically only 2 wins better off from last season, and we know how last season ended up. And we know the run we had to go on at the end of last season to stay in the division. And then the other main talking point is just the goals. We scored less goals than we did last season. Gents, I'd love to just get your thoughts on this. It was interesting at times just to take a step back because we isolate certain games and we look at, in the moment, but actually look at a longer trend, and it still shows some worrying trends, doesn't it, gents?
I think, I'd argue that this time last season, okay, we weren't getting the points, but we were actually playing well in games. There was games we were losing where we probably looked the better team, we created lots of chances, and quite clearly, defensively, we've tightened up, massively, and that's contributed to us winning games as opposed to losing or drawing games, I suppose, But yeah, I just think at the moment, I think defensively, I think we're solid. We have been since Harris has come in. Midfield, I think we look okay. But again, I keep bringing it to that area of the attacking thirds. We haven't got, unless Coburn's fit to play, we haven't got a recognised striker that could play that lone striker role. If you're gonna play Langstaff or Vanish, you've got to play them both together. You can't play one and play both of them. Go 4-4-2. Keep very compact. You bring. If you've got to play SA or Aziz, you bring him in and you keep them very compact to give that extra cover in midfield. But if you're going to play one striker, you can only do it if you've got Cobra. You can't play any other player in that one striker role. It doesn't work for me. And go back to your stat there, Chris. I just feel defensively, it's been the biggest positive thing we've changed in the last 12 months, and it's made a significant difference. You can see from our performances, haven't you?
We don't have, because Alex Neil plays the same formation. He plays one up top, and if you look at his successful teams, they've centered around a big physical striker. Jordan Hugo at Preston, Cameron Jerome at Norwich, to name 2. If Coburn's not even our player, so even if he is fit,
well, this is something he might have to look at the transfer window, won't he? He might have to bring in a big lump and a big target man in order to play that system. We clearly need that, but I think as stickler as Alex Neil is, I think even he'll have to concede and say, you know what, we can't play Langstaff as a low striker, we can't play Bradshaw as a low striker. We're gonna have to go 4-4-2 until Coburn's fit or available. But I say the easy way of doing it, the only way of doing it, is bringing someone in January as a target man. So there you've got a couple of options. I would like to see Ivanovic play that role better. He's 6'2". He's a lump, but he doesn't use his physicality to the best of his ability. And I'll use Morrison very, very similar. When Morrison first joined us, he didn't use his physicality as well as he did until he got a bit more experience and more game time and stuff. So hopefully it'll work out for Ivanovic. I really, really do hope it will. And I think he can be that player, just not now. But yeah, I think January is going to be really important for us. And hopefully Alex Neil will see today how non-existent we were up front and how important it is to get that right. That's the most important thing we've got to get right in January straight away. It's to sign a decent forward.
Well, and even into you, Paul, mate. Now knowing that Imaku is out until March, which is apparently come out post the match. Obviously, I've jumped straight on this, so I haven't heard that, but it sounds like that's come out officially now. So we already said we need March.
That's a long time, isn't it? Jesus Christ.
If we just assume, right? If we just assume for now, we need a centre forward. We've agreed on that. We need a 10. Which
if SA goes, we need a 10. I'll argue that if he stays, we're okay there.
Okay. We then need.
I'll come back on that. Finish this. I'll come back on that, Joe.
So we need. Let's agree then. We need a 10 and/or a winger. Right. Okay. That's 2. We probably need another central midfielder because if Wintl's not going to be here or he's going back, we need another one. So that's 3. We need another centre back because we cannot assist with what we have now. And I would imagine Wes will go. And I think we need another left back if Scanlon isn't going to be available. So that's 5 players, arguably, that we need in January. Sod the longer term. We need them now. And we just can't see that happening.
The thing is, it depends. When we look at these players, are we looking at them as first team players that are better than what we've got? Or are we looking at squad depth? Because if you bring in a strong defender, who are we going to sacrifice? Cooper or Tanganga? Definitely going to be Tanganga. So what we're saying is we're going to get a player in and play at the back that's going to be better than Cooper. Now, I can't see that.
I think your centre back can be a young Premier League centre back on loan that's going to push the first 2. That's what I don't think you need to go out and blow your back.
Okay. So we look at midfield then. Yeah, we look at midfield. We've got Casper that we like to think is probably pretty safe, and he's going to command that place. Saville. Now we could argue that he could be replaced, but then there's games when he performs really, really well, and you see the importance of him being in that team as well. So can you take him out of that team? Yeah, is that the right thing to do? I don't know. You then got Mitchell, behind them. You've got George Honeyman that can play centre mid as well. So, it's very hard to kind of get that right. I think we could even left back. We've got Scanlon coming back soon, who will push Joe Bryan for left back. We've got Danny McNamara, who eventually can be a third choice left back if need be. So I think we've got to spend that money wisely. What I'm saying is I don't think we need to spend money to buy 4 or 5 average players. I think we should go out there and sign maybe a quality striker, maybe one decent sort of winger who can allow Essa to play in the 10 or vice versa. And maybe, to your point, Chris, a Premiership young defender on loan who can push Cooper and Tanganga. But I think when Cooper comes back, I think he's straight back in again. Yeah, we didn't look too badly with Cooper and Tanganga together. They're forming a decent partnership, weren't they?
Yeah, I don't think, contrary to what the way I would simplify it is by defensively. I think you need to add depth. I don't necessarily think we need someone to come in and.
But has Murray Wallace played badly these last 3 games?
Norwich, I think poor.
Well, that one mistake, he didn't go for the header, did he? He didn't win that header. You could argue, that was a poor. But generally, I think he's come in. He's done all right for us. But we can get better than him, I think, as cover in January, whether that be a signing or a loan player. But I just feel that the important thing is up front for me.
That's what I was saying. So you need to impact the first team in the forward part of it. That's
definitely 100%. That's number 1. That's up the top, isn't it?
Priority number 1. But then again, it depends if SA is here or not, right? Because then that's another player that you have to
cover and replace.
I want to reference this point, so it's a really good one because we do seem to find ourselves saying that we need to, a complete overhaul of the squad. We need 4 or 5 players, and for me, this boils down to just lack of planning for our recruitment for the last 5 or so years. We've tried to build teams, and under Gary Rowett's tenure in particular, that were ready for sort of the here and now. We were never really trying to build the longer term. And now we've almost completely flipped it, and we're trying to build longer term, which I don't mind. but we also need to make sure that they're good enough for the here and the now. I want us to sign players that are like, here's an example, and Dan Marsh and I were discussing this yesterday. In my view, you tell me if you think I'm wrong. The two best summer signings, take Tanganga out because he was kind of already there. In terms of projects, have been Lucas Jensen and Femi Aziz. What have they both got in common? They both got in common that they're early to mid-20s. They're not 18 and 19, right? That's the age I want us to be signing. Early to mid-20s, because that way they've got a little bit more experience and they can still have tons of resale value, right? They're just not 18, 19 that are not quite ready yet. That's my view.
They're still developing. They can still get better.
Yeah.
Unlike, to your point, Chris, unlike Langstaff, who's 27, who's played 2 divisions beneath where we're playing, and you're signing him like he's going to be our main striker, you know? I just knew that weren't going to happen right from day one.
The more I think about it, and this is not a criticism of Langstaff, because I like him, you can tell he wants to do well, and I think in the right system, I still believe at Championship he can have an impact. But I'm not sure he was ever going to work in a Neil Harris system, ever. Which begs the question, why on earth did we sign him? And then second of all, in an Alex Neil system, which is very similar. So what's the point? Like, why on earth did we sign him? He doesn't fit the system that we play.
No idea. No idea. And I feel sorry for him. I don't blame him. You put yourself in Langstaff's shoes. You've done really well non-league. You come through. You're doing really well at Notts County. Scoring shitload of goals. An opportunity comes in for you to go and play for a Championship team, 2 divisions above. You're probably doubled your money, not triple. I know what Millwall paying him. Why would you turn that opportunity down? I don't blame him at all.
No.
It's an opportunity for him to come up there and prove himself. I just feel sorry for him because I do think he's a little bit out of his depth. If he was 22, 23 years old, I would have said, great signing. Yes, he's probably not ready at the moment, but let him learn, let him develop. He'll get better. But from what I've seen of him at the moment, the chance he's had, he's hit shots over the bar that even I can fucking score. And if you haven't seen my highlights, I'll show you that in a minute. But I'm just saying, it happens too often. It's not like it's happened once or twice. Every chance he gets either goes wide or over the bar. He very rarely tests the keeper. And that's concerning for me.
You know what really surprised me today and disappointed me with him being the sort of striker I thought he was? Don't know if you remember, SA got free on the right and he put in a cross and it went past their first defender and the second defender blocked it and Langstaff was behind him.
Yeah.
I think, well, surely you're trying to get on, come to the ball and get between the 2 defenders. So
he also switched off Disco, didn't he? Do you see that Disco where he switched off when there's a bit of a bad pass back and he sort of late to react to it, weren't he? And then he went too late, hesitated, didn't he? Again, I'll argue a Championship striker would have read that and been on that straight away, You can't fault his effort. Yeah, he's got a bit of pace. He's got energy, he tries hard. But, for me, he's just... I feel like broken record there. He's not Championship level,
It's like Chris is saying there, with your stats, Chris, it's bloody frightening, isn't it, that we've scored less goals than last year. And, and yet we've brought in, as I say, 3 strikers. It's not happening. I'm slightly different to a lot of the comments coming in there. I'm not looking for us to necessarily spend a lot of money in January. We need people who can come into the team or the squad immediately. So it might be loans, probably will be. But like you're saying, it's players that can affect now. I'd be surprised if we don't bring 3 or 4 in. I can't believe we'll only bring a couple in. It's not enough. We will need 3 or 4. And as you say, we don't know what will happen with SA, etc., and going out, there's a couple who surely want to move on and get some football, So it's an interesting window, but 100% striker and a 10 and a centre-back. But again, you're right. Centre-back cover. Doesn't have to be a starter. Can be somebody who challenges. I think Paul just said there, you get an injury to Tanga, fuck me, where are we then? So you've got to have someone who can come in, So
this is a guy that we've been talking about, haven't we? Poku. There's a couple of you have said about Poku. So he's injured till March, right? So he couldn't come in and affect the side. But do you take a part? Listen, I don't know if we could afford him. He's only got 6 months left on his contract, I believe. So in theory, would be available at a price range that could suit us. We may not be first in line, but do you, especially if SA goes, do you make a statement signing that, yes, okay, you can't affect the team straight away, but for the longer term, do you also look at something like that, or do you just purely focus on the here and now?
The right deal, I'd be happy for that to happen, but you'd also need somebody for the here and now. You know, that would be the balance. And I know that, and that would be a loan, I'm saying, you know, somebody who can come in and do the role now.
Agreed. Poku came from our academy, did he? Didn't know that. Right, guys, we've got it's showing 422 that are either listening now or have listened. So thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, obviously I need to plug that. So for those of you that haven't, please subscribe. Every single penny that we get in revenue from advertising, which is obviously how people monetize YouTube, and of course the actual podcast element is going to Cancer Research UK. So please, if you've never been to the channel before, hit the like button, guys, as well, please. This is your call to action, to hit that like button. Really helps the algorithm. The algorithm puts us up on the YouTube rankings, and of course, the further up we are, the more views we get, and of course, the more money that we can make for charity. So please do that, because we really appreciate it here. And if you didn't see the other day on the Norwich post-match, we are already over $560 raised for the charity, which is fantastic, which is all down to your hard work, fellas. That's to you, Joe and Disco, and of course the listeners, always making sure that you listen. So thank you very much for that. Chaps, let's talk Honeyman. Come on. This one, I think I might need to get a beer for this, because we need to talk about George Honeyman. He seems to, I was about to say divide opinion. I don't even know if he divides opinion anymore. I think there's probably about 70-30, 80-20 in the Honeyman shouldn't be near the team. Yeah, what's your perspective on that?
Do you want to go first? Okay, I mean, you know what? The first time I saw Honeyman play properly was against Millwall when he played for Hull at the Den. And in that game, he sort of played in the 10, but he was sort of roaming around. He ended up being on the right-hand side quite a bit, sometimes on the left. And he looked like the perfect number 10. I mean, he was on the ball, he was quality, he was dribbling in and out of plays, doing little 1-2s, and he looked a real nuisance and a real handful. I remember he even scored against us as well. And I thought, what a player. And when we signed him under Rowett, I was quite excited by that. I thought, what a player on the ball. He's going to do so much for us and have so much creativity. But I didn't see that in him at all. Now, Rowett used to play him on the right wing quite a lot in those days. And a big ask of him was to keep tracking back, defend. And you rarely see Honeyman going forward. And then I remember doing a end of season awards. And as you do, you talk to a few players. And he was sitting behind me. And I was having a bit of a laugh with him about things going on, you know. And then I said to him, out of curiosity, I said, I remember watching you against Hull. I said, you were quality that game against us, but I'm not seeing that from you this season. And he said, yeah, what can you do? It's kind of like, the Rowett way. He wants to play this way and be a little bit restricted how we're playing. We can't be so creative. And I was saying to him, it's a real shame, Matt. I said, because I want to see more of that from you. But his point was, what can you do? You can't argue. We're getting results. And I've just got to do what I'm told, basically, Now, I don't think we're in the Rowett way of playing at the moment. I think we've got a license to get full. We've got a license to be creative and try and do things. But yet I'm still not seeing Honeyman do anything on the ball. But the worst thing for me is that I saw Honeyman do this, and I know he can do it. He's got it in him. But when I see him playing that 10 role in particular, I just never see him doing anything for me that's going to connect the midfield and attack and make things happen. Yeah, I get he presses, and I get, he knows when to press and when not to press, and that's an important role and all that. But you could get someone from League One. You could get Billy Mitchell doing that job if you wanted to. If that's what you care about, is get someone to do a defensive job. But for me, if you're playing in a number 10, you're playing an attacking role, you need to be able to create goals, score goals, a bit like what Fleming used to do. And since Fleming's come out, we haven't replaced him. And for me, I don't know. lovely guy, Honeyman, works hard, but he just doesn't do it for me at number 10 role. And I'm sorry, because I would love him to prove me wrong, but I just can't see it in him. And he's had a long enough try in that 10 role. People are questioning whether SA is good enough to play in the 10 at the moment. He's only played 2 games in the 10. I had my brother-in-law watching a game with me against Norwich, and he was slagging off SA. Oh, he shouldn't play there. He's not good enough to play there. And then he done some brilliance and scores a great goal. He's played 2 games there. If you gave SA the amount of opportunities that Honeyman's had in that 10, trust me, he will be double the player he is now. And for me, I think we bared with Honeyman for too long in that role, and we've been persevering. And I don't know what we're expecting to see, because we're not seeing anything more with him on the ball and us attacking with him in that number 10 role. I get he does everything defensively for us in that role, which is great, but on the ball, nah, not for me.
Yeah, I think for me, he's really surprised me. I think his use of the ball, especially today and the last few games that he's played, I know he's been out for a couple, it's unbelievable how poor he seems to be at, basic passing and moving, for instance. However, different to you, Joe, having watched him today, I'll go back to what I said. I do think he has a role to play in the team, more away from home, when we want to be a bit more solid and hard to beat and difficult to break down. I can see him potentially play. I mean, look, is he really? He's in the 10 role. Is that really a 10 role? It's almost like a third midfielder in a way, isn't it?
Play him centre mid.
And look, I do see him as being in that mix of, as you rightly say, being a centre mid, where he did quite well last year. Few games, didn't he? And was it Edwards when Edwards had him playing there?
He was man of the match when we won against Norwich 2-0 at home. He was probably by far the best player on the pitch, wasn't he? Playing centre mid.
Yeah, so that answers that.
Where would you play? Yeah, to Tim's question, I'll play him centre mid. I actually asked him again that day in the lounge when I was talking to him, where would you say is your best position? And he said centre mid. He said, but I'll never get a chance to play there because obviously there are players that are ahead of him playing there. So play him there. Why can't we change the formation and go 4-3-3 and play Honeyman, Casper, and Saville together in midfield and allow Honeyman to play more centrally rather than? And then what you could then do is you could play Aziz and SA a little bit more narrow and to support Langstaff, whoever it is, in a front 3.
But then we have no width.
Yeah,
but that's your fullbacks. Your fullbacks then push forward.
But they don't. They don't. So
but with a 3-man midfield, your fullbacks can push forward, and your wide midfielders then fill in at fullback. So let's say Casper's playing on the right side of the 3. If Leonard goes, it's Casper's job to fill in behind him in that system.
Leonard's not the right player to play. I'm not disagreeing with that as a hypothetical system. But
or even Joe Bryan. But you say that, but he got the assists for Ivanovic, didn't he? Against Blackburn, game. It was him in that area.
We had a throw, Joe. We had a throw.
Okay. I hate to say he probably can't do it up and down all day long. I'd argue maybe Joe Edwards could probably do it on the other side, perhaps. But yeah, that would be another way of playing it, Or you then end up having to replace Leonard for another right back. Maybe play Leonard more centrally alongside Tanganga instead, maybe,
Johnny's got a good point, Joe. Like, what? Maybe you're the answer to our issues up front. Maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need to bring you in to
well, let's not push it, Johnny. Maybe like attacking coach. Give them my experience scoring at the Den. But look, I'm not knocking the managers at all. It's a high enough job that they're doing. And, what do I know? All I'm saying is I'm only saying what I see, and I'm just talking through what I see from my own eyes and what I feel is what I would do in that position, And but for me,
I think it's frustrating, isn't it? Sorry, Joe. I think it's frustrating, isn't it? Because the other point with those stats, Chris, we're not that far off, really. We're sort of in there, defensively solid, hard to beat team. We've got our home record back, where teams don't like coming to the Den, and it's a difficult place to come. And it'll be interesting to see what Rowett does on New Year's Day. That's not an easy game, by the way, as it looks. He's had a great start, hasn't he? So we've got that. It's just, and actually, without putting him under too much pressure, this is a real test for Alex Neil. What's he going to be able to do with this squad of players that makes us, and we can't expect Oxford to suddenly be a different team, but will we see some signs of, oh, this is a little bit more creative and people being a bit more on the front foot, etc., you know, because we know we can do it. We did it at the beginning of the season.
One in one, Alex. One game, one goal.
Hello, Rod. Hello. Evening to you. I think you were at the game, so I allow you to be late. I want to give my opinion on Honeyman because I think I'm more disco than Joe on this. Where I don't want to see George Honeyman start at home.
What about if he's playing in centre mid?
No, not good enough.
Really,
not good enough. But I do think times and place he has a role to play. In where we currently have. Do I want to see us have better players? Yes. Do I want to see us have a player that can do the work that Honeyman does, but also add the goals and assists that Fleming did? Of course, but then he's probably a £10 million player. So people need to realise that is such a difficult balance to get. And I agree with this comment here from Ben de Beaver. Honeyman gives the ball away so much his technical levels League One, but his work rate is unquestionably good. And I agree with that. Off the ball, I guarantee you there's not many better players in the league. He was a cross-country runner. He can run forever. However, if we want to move forward as a team and we want to be better, we cannot have players like that starting in our side. However, at the moment, given the players we've got, given the squad we've got, I think he has a role to play away from home, which is why I don't mind him being in the side today. That's my point of view. But just to be categorically clear, I do not want to see him starting. And he doesn't play in a 10. You call it what you want. He's not a 10. He never does play in a 10. He basically he's a person that sets the press up top. He doesn't play in a 10. He doesn't link any play. He doesn't do that. And I think if you were to ask him, he knows that. So for me, yes, I think he adds value. I think you can clear to see that he's got a lot of respect from the players. He's well liked. So there is definitely something behind the scenes we don't see that he adds. I think he adds a lot in terms of defensively, our shape away from home, but I don't want to see him start. That's my point of view.
For me, you got to play players in their most comfortable, most natural position. Yeah. And fortunately, like by me attending like these end of season awards and all that, and me being, very nosy and very kind of like bullish, I like talking to these players. I love asking questions. And one of the questions I love to ask them quite often is, where do you see your best position being? And I'm always intrigued to know what their answer is, because sometimes we play players out of their position and we expect them to sort of set the world alight. But if you're asked to play in a position you're not 100% comfortable in, you're never going to play as well as you hope to play. So, for example, Emarku, he wants to play left wing. And I remember at the time we were playing up front, we were playing on the right-hand side, and that wasn't quite working. I remember sitting at the table with Brooke Norton-Cuffy and Essay, and we were sitting around debating about Essay, where he should play. This is where Fleming was playing in number 10. And we were all arguing, and Brooke Norton-Cuffy said, he pointed to Essay, goes, he's not a winger. He should play in the 10. And Essay sort of nodded. He was like, well, that's where I want to play. I was like, well, can't you force yourself in that area, that position? He said, how can I? And we kind of laughed. We said, Zian's playing there. What can we do? And I said, joking around, well, if Zian sort of fucks off, there you go. There's your opportunity to play in the 10. And he was a massive smile. And they all kind of went, well, yeah, let's see if that happens. Now, when Zian does go, SA doesn't get played there still. He still gets played as on the wing. So what I'm saying is you need to play players in their best position. For me, Honeyman told me he wants to play centre mid. I see him as a box-to-box player. You mentioned there, Chris, he used to be a cross-country runner. Why are we not utilising?
He's not technically good enough to play in central midfield for me.
But why isn't he?
That's why he never.
So are you saying that Billy Mitchell is?
Well, Billy Mitchell
technically better. Yeah, I would.
I wouldn't say. You say Billy Mitchell is technically better than Honeyman?
Yeah.
Honeyman plays in the 10. He gives the ball away because he's playing in an area where he gets the ball. He's got to turn. He's got to find a forward and a striker. There's never opportunity there for him to release the ball, give the ball to somebody. When you're playing in centre middle, you're playing in defence. It's easy to retain the ball. It's little short passes to players that are in space. If you're playing in the 10, you always got someone behind you. You've got to try and turn. It's very hard to keep the ball. If you try and make something happen, trying to create a pass, the chances are it'll probably go astray or whatever. It's very hard to retain the ball if you're playing in that 10 position. But you play him in a centre mid role. I thought when he came on against Norwich with Wintle, I was only 10 minutes, but I thought he looked fantastic in that centre mid role, Honeyman. He got on the ball, he was driving forward, he looked quick, he wanted the ball, he was moving around the pitch really well. You know, we've got to start playing the players in their best positions and not trying to put square pegs in round holes, which is what we've been doing for such a long time.
Yeah. I think like Chris, he can play a role there, but he would be a squad player in terms of central mid. He's not going to be first choice, is he? Would you have him first choice, Joe? You wouldn't have him above C.
In this team at the moment, I would have him alongside Casper in centre mid.
Would you? Ahead of Sav?
I would.
Oh,
I would, yeah.
Well, I think Sav's played too many games, and like Angelo's always saying, we need to use our subs more, don't we?
Yeah.
All these games in 10 days or whatever it is, and was it one sub today? One sub, brothers. You know, it's. Yeah. But I understood it because I think he was hanging on to not lose the game. Let me just, as you're on a roll, Joe, let me throw another grenade in. I personally, watching it today, I think SA is more effective on the wing at the moment, or the right or left side of the 3 than the 10. I just feel when he's played 10, to me, he's been crowded out a little bit. I'm not sure I'm not saying he won't get there.
Yeah, but I would say he's played there 30, 40 times now. So again, you get accustomed to it. You kind of know what works, what doesn't work. You play him in a 10, 30, 40 times, you'll see an even better player there. Yeah, you know, and that's for me. Yes, he does job. When you look at his first 5-10 games there, he was making mistakes. He wasn't playing that great. No wonder he wasn't getting played to pick all the time. But you give that person a go and you play him 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. They eventually they master that position. You know, and for me, he will be the connection between our midfield and our forwards. We've got nothing in there at the moment with Honeyman. We've got no connection. And that's a problem. Look at the stats that Chris showed. Both seasons, no matter who's in charge, who's playing, what tactics we're playing. Yes, defensively we're better, but goals, we're still struggling to score goals at the moment. And
that's getting that balance right, isn't it?
As an attacking 10, the man I'd play there at the moment is Watmore. Honestly, if you think about it, he's busy. I know he's head down and whatever. He's busy. He actually very often lays in some lovely little balls into strikers. I remember him doing it at Plymouth last year and several other times.
Remember at Blackpool away this game as well?
Yeah. We were there, Chris, weren't we? We saw that live. It was a great little through ball, wasn't it?
I think Watmore. He can't do 90 minutes. This is why we need another player. To me personally, I think SA, you get whether he plays in the centre or the right, he drifts, and I think you need to give him a bit of a free roll anyway. So I personally, I wouldn't get too hung up on whether he plays in the 10 or on the right. Personally, I wouldn't. He has to play, and he is, and he's affecting games, and he's. Some of the things he does, chaps, it's just you're not going to see a Millwall player do some of the things that he does for a long time. So we just need to enjoy him. He could be gone next week. Seriously,
that's what I'm saying. As soon as that, absolutely, exactly. But I say for me, that's what we're lacking. We're lacking that connection. You could blame Langstaff, you could blame Ivanovic, but the point is, we're not creating chances. There's no connection between the midfield and attack at the moment, you know. And you could put Watmore there. Yeah, Watmore could. I would rather have Watmore than Honeyman. I don't think Watmore is my preference. Like I said, I'd rather go with SA in the 10, but I would happily put Watmore in there if I had to.
Like you said on your, sorry, Chris. Like you said on your review before. Maybe Alex Neil was thinking of playing himself because he would seem to be getting involved in the sideline.
Especially with the old headers.
I like that.
Even Chris Brown said there, Chris Brown's point, sorry, Chris, if you just bring it up again about Casper De Norre. You know, he could play in the 10, potentially.
I'd agree with
that. I'd argue that he's still more of a kind of midfielder than that kind of attacking brain.
Yeah.
But I think he'll offer more than Honeyman will in that 10.
Definitely.
I mean, you saw, it was only 10 minutes. We came on against Swansea, he played in the 10 and scored the goal, didn't he, from being in a 10 position. But I'd rather have him there than Honeyman. But for me, again, because of his energy, I'd rather have him midfield, get him playing box to box, get him around the pitch. But that's the scary thing. If we're going to play that system 4-2-3-1, and you're going to play a 10, you need to get that right. And for me, is Esse. But if he's going to be gone next week, potentially, then with that money, do you then sign a decent forward and a decent number 10? I mean, that's not a bad bit of business, is it? If you let Esse go, where we're going to get for it? Let's say we've got 10 million for him. You spend what? Okay, you're not going to spend all of it. Let's say you spend 3 million on a number 10 and 3.5 million on a striker, or 4 million on a striker and 4 million on a 10. You still got £2 million to play with, haven't you? You know?
I mean, I don't know, but say we get 10, I wouldn't expect any more than 50% to be reinvested. So I think we need to bear that in mind. So can you get 2 players for 5 million? Probably, if your scouting's good and your network's good, right? It's frustrating because I like the look of Jack Redoni, and he was at Wimbledon, you know, and then he went to Huddersfield and he went. These are the players that. This was going back to my point earlier. We were always building to try and create a team for here and right now. We're never looking further ahead. You know, Redoni's now getting into that sort of. I think he's like 23. I like
Redoni. Redoni. I watched him for Huddersfield against us, and even then, I loved him.
Yeah,
what a player! You know, ex-Arsenal academy player, isn't he? I think from memory, Arsenal youth. I think from. But again,
and he takes free kicks, doesn't he?
He can take free kicks.
Ball, just what we need. You know, bloody hell.
So. Let's go on to our final talking point, which is a nice segue there, Disco, around our set piece coach. You see what I did there? Segue from that to that. Adam Barrett has. It's been announced that he'll be leaving the club. It's literally just been announced on Twitter.
If you look at the comments there, Chris, there's quite a few saying he's actually left.
Yeah, leaving, left, whatever. Like,
as of today, he's gone. I think. I don't know. You see Big E's comment on there.
Yeah, he's whether he's gone. Gone, going. Yeah,
he was on the bench today, wasn't he? He was there today.
He was there today.
So he's gone after the game.
I don't know whether whoever's commented on there, whether they actually know about it or they're privileged to know that he's actually officially left.
Yeah, yes, the club have announced it. Ben de Beaver, just on this point, mate, he did.
Oh, sorry, Chris, I just changed that. Sorry, mate.
What are you doing, guys?
Sorry, I was trying to find you in the comments. Sorry, mate.
It's just Joe usually hosts this, so I usually sit back with my feet up with a pie. Just on this one, mate, you're right, he did, but he never went to Huddersfield for 5 million. That was my point. That's when we should have signed him.
And we were rumoured at one point, weren't we? We were rumoured to be obviously too late.
Back when Huddersfield signed him?
When Huddersfield signed it.
Really?
Yeah.
So frustrating. I mean, right. So I've already seen some comments in the chat, right, about Adam Barrett. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't care if I get shit for it. How people can form an opinion that Adam Barrett is a shit coach is beyond me. You cannot. I'm not saying he's not. I'm not sitting there going, I know he isn't and he's this. I don't know that. I do not have any. I can't say you can form an opinion. So what is clear is that he's been at the club 8 years. His opinion has been valued by multiple managers and coaches. He's had 2 stints in
players as well.
Players have clearly said, and we've spoken to them to say he's a good guy, he's a good coach. And then for some reason, he seems to be this massive scapegoat. And I don't quite get it. Now, do I think it's the right time for him to move on? Absolutely. And he goes with my wishes and all that kind of thing. But I just see constant hate for him, and I don't get it. I don't get it. What do you guys think? I mean, and is it the right time?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with your point there, Chris. Because in a day, you can't. It's like you say, if you've got a tea lady who works at a club, how can you say she makes a shit cup of tea? You never drank it before, So it's very easy for us to say that. But to your point, you got to base it on facts and what players and what coaches and what his colleagues say about him. But for me, if his job is a set piece coach. We don't do enough in set pieces for me to warrant his job there as a good set piece coach. Now, is he involved in how we're structured defensively? Does he get involved in that aspect of the game? If he does, then fair play to him, because I think he has helped us massively in those areas. But for me, I don't think we do enough in attacking areas of set pieces. And if that's his job, if that's one of his big jobs, then for me, he's not fulfilling that duty well enough. I don't know how you feel about it, Disco.
Yeah, look, listen, Rowett 100% said he was responsible for set pieces, didn't he? Several times.
Go. Yeah.
And actually, turn it on its head, Barrett will point to, we've always been at the top end of chances converted on set pieces, whether we like it or not. We have. So he'll say, "Well, I've
done the way we score, isn't it?"
Exactly. But I agree with you. When you also look at some of the set pieces and the same old, it's like, come on, let's try something different. The odd time we did, we actually looked quite good and created something. So I think that's why he got a lot of stick, Chris, because of that set piece aspect. And he just seems fairly or unfairly, he seems a bit old school, doesn't he? Like the old ex-pro being a coach, a bit of a mate of the manager and what have you. But as you say, he stood the test of time with 2 or 3, 4 managers now. But 100% now is the time for a freshen up, without a shadow of a doubt. I hope Liver's going to stay as first team coach, because I thought it was said he wouldn't be. It would be something else.
I don't think I think he'll remain at the club, but I don't think he will be the first team coach. I could be wrong. I think it was clear to see today, wasn't it? Alex Neil was next to, I believe, Martin Canning, who I think will end up coming in as some kind of assistant first team coach or whatever. So we'll have to see. I think, one of the other things as well, which absolutely no knowledge, chaps, but I think, when you look at people that have followed Alex Neil to certain clubs, one of them is Martin Canning, which has been to most. I don't think he went to Norwich because he was Hamilton's manager at the time, because he took over from Alex Neil. But the other one that's been at a few clubs with him is Paul Gallagher, if you remember, a central midfielder, Scottish guy. So, listen, I don't know. I've got no idea. But I'm just trying to think of players that, if Neil was to bring in other people, because the coaching squad's quite small anyway. We never replaced that David Carolan, did we, if you remember? So,
very, very limited. But Livermore is very, very good. And I've had it on good authority in training. He is excellent. At setting up drills. The players quite enjoy sessions. It's never quite at the Joe Edwards level. I think back in those days, players used to say like his drills were like unbelievable and like they were really up for it. But Dave Livermore apparently is pretty good on the drill side of things. Go back to set pieces very, very quickly. And again, blaming Adam Barrett for it, or whether it's his fault or not. How much is it of Adam Barrett versus our players just technically not delivering good balls into the box or in corners or free kicks? We see it time and time again. Honeyman taking free kicks, Saville taking free kicks, going wayward, going over the bar, going over. There's a corner today where Honeyman puts one hand up. Now, for those of you that don't know this, normally that's a code to the rest of the team there. So one hand means it could be like near posts, 2 hands means back post or whatever. He sticks one hand in. If you watch the run, every player makes a run into that front post. The ball goes to the back post where there's no one there. And the defender just clears it easily. Now, is that Adam Barrett's fault? Or was that George Honeyman for not putting the ball where it should go? Do you see what I'm trying to say here? And just to add to that point as well, when, and I'm going to start a bit of a fanboy here, when are we going to let Esse take fucking free kicks? The boy delivers great cross. Saw it today. He put one on his nose almost, like for Tanganga. Unfortunately, Tanganga missed the header. When we're going to put Esse on there, the amount of times he picks up the ball, take a free kick, and he gets ushered away by the senior players. I think we've got to allow Esse to start taking free kicks and stuff.
I'd love him, Paul. Sorba Thomas. What a delivery he's got, that guy. It's worth having a player like that, without a doubt. Let me just say, though, Joe, for me, 1 hand up, 2 hands up is normally a bloody good night out for me, to be fair.
Mate, well, we know you're off to cut some shapes tonight. So we're going to round up here, gents. We go an hour and 20 minutes. It feels like it's only been 20 minutes. So massive thank you to you both for coming on and sharing your evening with us. Really, really do appreciate it. For those of you that listened, thank you very much, as always, for listening. We really, really do appreciate it. We appreciate all the comments, interaction. We try and get through as much as we can. Football's just a game of opinions, isn't it? At the end of the day, we all love the club. We want it to do well, and we've all got different opinions. And I think the only opinion we can agree on is that I agree with Alex here, is you got to love disco. So, right. Well, if I don't speak to, I'm sure I speak to you two boys before, but for those listening, have a wonderful seeing the new year in. Enjoy that. Enjoy the next few days. And hopefully see as many of you down the Den on New Year's Day against Gary Rowett's Oxford with Alex Neil in the dugout for the first time. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Disco. Thank you, Joe. Enjoy your evening. And of course, as always, bye for now.